and welcome back to The Common View on Foxboro Cable Access. This series is one of the ways that we're trying to reach you where you are, because we know not everyone gets their information in the same way. Some of you like to browse social media, others read the Foxboro Reporter, and this way we can come to your couch, into your living room, and bring you up to date while you sit in the comfort of your home, or you listen going to bed at night, driving in the car. We want to keep you in the loop for what's going on here in town. This is our second episode of The Common View. The first one was with Mark Craig, Director of Human Services, and Chris Gallagher, DPW Director, where we provided an update of the process of the community center and the DPW building. Today, we are shifting topics over to something that affects every household in Foxborough, and that's the town's budget. We're going to walk you through how it's built, who's involved, and how you can follow along or get involved in yourself. Today, in order to bring this to you, I have Marie Almodovar, our town's finance director. She and her team lead the charge every day and every year working on the town budget and keeping the town fiscally sound. So thank you, Marie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here to help folks understand how the budget comes together and the process that comes with that.
Okay, so let's start talking about the basics. When we're talking about the town budget, what do we really mean?
So the budget is essentially your financial plan for the coming year. So you basically prepare what you expect to collect in revenues and how that revenue will be going out the door to provide essential services like education, public safety, police, fire, roads, water, and sewer. At the end of the day, the budget must be balanced. Otherwise, the state will not certify your tax rate. That also means that you cannot spend more than what you actually bring in. So our finance team works very hard behind the scenes, ensuring that our budget is balanced at all times.
And I'm going a little off script here just because you made me think of something, but the whole budget process is heavily regulated and overseen by the state. Is that correct?
It is.
This is not something that we can go rogue or follow different procedures. It is highly monitored.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
So who's involved in actually putting all of this budget together?
So it's a collaborative effort. We have the town manager and finance team. We work together from the beginning of the process, setting the revenue expectations. When we receive the budget requests from department heads, finance and you, Paige, we work together to basically balance the budget. The budget, once you propose your proposed budget on February 1st, it usually goes to the select board. They then review the budget and make their own recommendation. The budget is built based on the guideline that they provide at the financial summit. After the select board approves their version of the budget, it goes to the advisory committee. And from February through usually early April, advisory committee will meet with department heads. Then ultimately they'll make their own recommendation, and that is what goes to town meeting. And in May, town meeting then is the final deciding vote on the budget.
Got it. So as you mentioned, I'm required to submit a balanced budget by February 1st of each year, or the next business day,
yes,
if it's a weekend. And just again, going off script a little bit, right now, I know we just had our meeting. You're meeting with all the town departments in advance to sort of find out what's going on and sort of what our priorities are. And just to elaborate a bit on what Marie said, as a part of the process, we do get sort of, I don't want to say a wish list, but we get the town's department's sort of hopes. Yes. And then it's up to me, and really in consultation with you before it goes to the select board and the AdCom, where we have to make some cuts because we can't submit a wish list budget. We have to submit an actual budget that you feel that can be funded and to be balanced. So just to show that there is a whole process, and sometimes folks are asking for new positions or certain initiatives, and we often have to say no just in order to balance the budget, and especially in light of some recent financial strains and increases that we're seeing, as every household in town is seeing. So you kind of walked us through the annual timeline, and it's getting ready to start now. I think the financial summit is something you might want to mention.
Yep. So the financial summit, that's essentially the budget kickoff. So that will be on December 2nd at 5:30 in the gala room. That will be broadcast live on TV, so you could tune in. You're certainly welcome to attend if you want to as well. Like I said, that's the budget kickoff. So at that meeting, finance, in collaboration with you, will go over the revenue expectations for the next year. Not only the next year, we do also get into the 5-year plan, which covers, both 5-year expected revenues and expected expenses. So that's the budget kickoff. Then from there on, the select board will essentially provide us guidance for the budget. So that will be either level service, level fund. It all really depends on where the revenues are going to come in at, or are projected to come in at. From that financial summit, finance sends out budget instructions to department heads. They'll spend most of December working on their budget requests. The budget requests will be due to us in early January. Shortly after that, finance will put everything together, submit everything to you as a town manager, and then we'll have budget meetings with every single department head. And eventually we'll get to the point where we get to a balanced budget, because we are legally required to have a balanced budget. That budget will go out, as you mentioned earlier, February 1st, I believe falls on a Sunday. So your budget will be out February 2nd, excuse me. That will go to the select board and AdCom, and then we will prepare. So in February, the select board will review the budget on air. They'll make their recommendation, and then shortly after that, the AdCom budget review meetings will start. Those are not televised, but you're welcome to attend in person. So we'll go through those meetings in February and March, possibly in early April as well. Then from there on, we get into town meeting in May. And that's pretty much the timeline of the budget.
So it is a lot of behind the scenes
Yes.
work. As you know, we'll be doing this for the next 3 or 4 months. And I can't stress enough how important the AdCom meetings are, where they really do have every department head in, and they have to speak to their full budget, and it really does get dissected. So it's not like any of this passes through without intense scrutiny.
Yes.
So when we appreciate all that hard work, and we really do encourage residents to pay attention to the AdCom process, because that's really the detail
Yes.
you're going to get that we don't really do at town meeting floor. Okay, so backing up a little bit, that's a really good picture of the process, but you always mention the financial policies and how there's sort of the foundation of budgeting. Can you just describe a little bit or explain these financial policies and why they matter?
Yes, so financial policies are essentially the rules of the road. So they determine what levels we would target for essentially our unassigned fund balance, which is our chief operating budget fund of the town. Right now we have essentially a target where we target 5 to 10% of our operating budget in our fund balance. We also have other policies around stabilization funds, which are your rainy day funds, your other reserves, capital stabilization fund, free cash, how we balance the budget, and using free one-time revenues. Those are all covered in our financial policies document. And when we go out to issue bonds, so when we're borrowing money for a large building project, the bond rating agencies like to see that you have financial policies, that they are in line with best practices. I'll note that last year we did go back and revise them to better align with today's practices.
You tightened them up, actually,
We did,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
And we added a few new policies, especially around free cash and using one-time revenues. So, having financial policies helps you when you go out to issue bonds, helps you maintain that, that AAA credit rating that we do have, which does allow us to save money on interest when we're borrowing for large building projects.
Is AAA credited, is that the highest you can have?
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
so the sort of folks out there that evaluate bonding and financial pictures, they think Foxborough's being managed at the highest
Yes.
level possible?
Yep.
Great. Again, going rogue, as I tend to do, this free cash language, people seem to think free cash is that. It's just free cash we can throw around, and it sounds very liberal. Can you just, for the folks at home, describe a little bit why that's a misnomer and sort of the constraints around free cash?
Yes, so free cash, I wish the state would call it something else, because it's really not. It's not free money. It's So as I mentioned earlier, you have your unassigned fund balance. That's your chief operating fund of the town. So that houses everything. That's where most of your revenues go into that fund. Free cash is the portion of that fund that's uncommitted for other purposes. So it's still your fund balance at the end of the day. It's not just free money. With free cash, it gets certified each year by the state. So we have to show when we close the books at the end of June, we have to show that we have no deficits on the books. They then take that fund balance, they deduct any outstanding receivables that you have, so any taxes that you haven't collected, and then any deficits that you might have. Say if you had a grant that the reimbursement didn't come in on time, they'll hit your free cash for that. Once that's certified by the state, you could use it for any legal purpose. The best practice set by the state and even the GFOA, which is our Government Finance Officers Association, they say that free cash, it's really one-time revenue, so you should restrict it to one-time uses such as capital, which we do here. We do fund most of our capital with free cash, and also building up your reserves, so your rainy day funds, your stabilization funds. It's really not encouraged that you use those for recurring, operating expenses, because free cash like I said, it's a part of your fund balance. The fund balance tends to go up and down. So it's not a stable revenue source. It really should be restricted to one-time uses.
Right, and I learned that the hard way in negotiating the contracts this past year, where, it looked like we had a lot of money on the books, but as you said, we couldn't use that free cash to pay salaries because we don't know year to year whether that free cash is going to be there. So while it might be here this year, when we go to pay folks next year, if that free cash isn't there, then we're in a heap of trouble. So
we'll be in trouble. Yep.
Yeah, so that's a tough lesson, and it's tough to understand sometimes because free cash sounds so free and liberal. And I know Foxborough does tend to have a decent free cash balance, but for example, during COVID, when the stadium shut down, I know that our free cash did go down quite a bit. So
it did, and we also had to use a significant amount to balance the budget. So it does help you when you have an emergency situation, but you really should not rely on that as a recurring revenue source.
Got it. So then you also had mentioned the long-range financial forecast. What's the purpose of that, and how is it used?
So that's another best practice, set by the state and the GFOA. So when we go to work on the budget, we project out not just next year, but the 4 years beyond that. We do that both on the revenue and expenditure side and for the capital improvement plan. I know we'll get into that in a little bit. But what we do, so at the Financial Summit, as I mentioned earlier, I'll go over the 5-year projections. So it's a good practice to not just look at the next year. I mean, you really should be looking into the future to try to make decisions, ensure that you're making decisions now that are not going to hurt you, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So we project out what we can reasonably project on the revenue side. On the expenditure sides, once you have settled collective bargaining contracts, it's pretty easy to project out, those salary expenditures. So the 5-year plan goes out, like I said, on both revenue and expenditure side. We do, for example, for our local receipts, we do use conservative estimates there because when you have a stadium like Gillette Stadium, the revenues, especially from concerts, outside of football and soccer, those tend to go up and down. That's why they call local receipts elastic revenues. So they expand and contract depending on how the community is doing as a whole. So when you're projecting, your tax levy, that's pretty easy to project. We are restricted by 2.5% from Prop 2.5. We use essentially an average for new growth, but with your local receipts, you have to be very, very careful. We are, like I said earlier, we are fortunate enough to have the local receipts that we do because we do earmark a lot of those one-time revenues outside of the projections that we do include for a lot of our capital. So that 5-year plan essentially goes out and it provides the select board, AdCom, and the residents with the data that they need to, to decide, okay, is this the budget that we're voting on in May, is that sustainable over the next, 4 years beyond that?
Great. And I could say that again, during contract negotiations, that long-range forecast really did tell you how to guide me, in the sense of you were able to say what was sustainable and what wouldn't be, because we kind of know next year, but you don't always know the years ahead. So it's really beneficial to have the benefit of those projections to provide financial guidance as we figure out what's sustainable and what's not. And then my second point on what you said is, I think a good example of it is this year, and I could be wrong, but if I recall, I believe we only have 4 concerts in the current fiscal year we're in because of the way it lays out with World Cup and whatnot. And then next year, we anticipate a very large spike because of World Cup and a heavy concert season. But the timing this year, so again, we can go from 4 events to 14 or more in the blink of an eye, and really that's where the variables come into play for you, I would imagine. So, all right, well, that's very helpful. Thank you. So switching now over to CIP, Capital Improvement Plan. Let's talk about that, and what does that cover?
So the CIP, it's our capital improvement plan. So we have a committee that reviews any, it's not just any building project, it could be equipment, vehicles, anything that has a value of at least $25,000 and a useful life of 5 years or more. So at the same time the departments are working on their operating budget, they're also working on their capital budget. And just like we do with the 5-year financial plan, we ask department heads to project out not only next year, but the 4 years beyond that, just so we could have a true, 5-year capital plan and plan for that as well. A lot of that is, major building projects, renovations, very heavy-duty equipment that we really need to plan for. And then, so as I mentioned, we have a capital improvement committee that every year in March, they review all of the requests, and they'll essentially rate them depending on the timing, the need, and the safety aspect of it. Once they go through the request, they'll recommend a CIP budget to the select board. And then just like the operating budget, it goes through the select board and ultimately AdCom and then town meeting.
Got it. And I think our meetings are on Saturday mornings. I think it's the first
usually
Saturday.
It's the first, yes.
Yes, so we do them on Zoom, so residents can pay attention if they'd like. We do it on Zoom just for, and we do it on Saturday morning for the best accessibility. And it's not great for you and me, but it does. We are trying to keep it accessible to the residents. All right, so we've given a lot of information, but if residents wanted to sort of keep up with the budget process, what's the best way to do that, and how can they really check out the budget of the town?
So I would say, to view historical data, our ClearGov platform is a good starting point. So we have a link right on the finance webpage. So ClearGov is the platform that we use it to build our budget, and also our operating and capital budget, but we also load historical actual figures for revenues and expenditures. So if you were to click on the link on the finance page, it will take you to our homepage under ClearGov. And right away, you'll notice a pop-up box will pop up, and it will ask you to enter your how much you pay in taxes. And then once you enter that amount, the software will show you where your tax dollars are going.
That's really cool.
Now, I believe the platform goes all the way back to 2017, so it does go back, a number of years. And then just before we start the budget process, we will load the fiscal year 25, the final numbers, now that we have closed the books. So that's a good starting point. We also encourage you to tune into the financial summit, watch the select board meetings. You could attend those as well. Same thing with AdCom. We do have a lot of information on our finance website. We have budget books there. We have reports on our major liabilities, like our pension system, our OPEB, other post-employment benefits, which is our retiree health insurance benefits. We do have a lot of information on there. And as always, you could always reach out to the finance department. I'm always there. My assistant, Brandon Roberts, is there. They can reach out to you, your town manager's office. Our doors are always open. We're happy to, help residents understand, how the budget gets built and how it affects everyone.
Great. Well, this has been really helpful. I think it's It's a lot to take on, but we appreciate you walking us through the process. And this is our second episode of The Common View. It is, again, another way we're trying to reach the residents and inform them of you all of what we're up to at Town Hall, and to be transparent and accessible. If you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, please let Maura Buckley know. She's our communications specialist. Her information's on our town website. And as always, we're thankful to Foxboro Cable Access for allowing us this platform and for always working with us to reach out to the community. And Marie, thank you so much for you and your team and all your hard work. And thanks again for joining The Common View. And we'll see you next time. Take care.